Testing audio levels. Thanks. Oh, there's a power. No, there's one right here, actually. Just make sure my laptop doesn't die on me. Don, do you work for Winco? Oh, good. Woodland Manufacturing? Huh. An e-commerce manufacturing company? Oh, cool. Huh. LeapFox doesn't have a sign. Did you notice that? Yeah, they're like the only ones. Like even the tattoo place next door has a sign, but LeapFox doesn't. You should talk to us about that. Yeah, that's a problem that needs solved right now. Okay, you do signs. Woodland Manufacturing? I don't know much about it. And where's your office? In that big long building behind R.C. Willey? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I work for Sensi, so we used to be, yeah. And Sensi used to be in that big long building right behind R.C. Willey, but then we moved over to a slightly larger facility. Holy cow, that place. You go to Freddy's often? Really? I like it. They have good chicken. I tell Scott every time I come here, I could never work at this place. Because I came here last night to teach a quick little class, and before walking in, had to get a Coke Zero with coconut flavoring in it, because it was happy hour over there, so drinks are half price. Why wouldn't you, Ben? And then today on the way in, I had to stop and get a breakfast burrito, which, Brenda, I was going to give you half of it had you worn your button, but you didn't, so I ate the whole thing. So my fitness goals are being killed by Brenda. Not wearing her button. Because I just love Sonic, but anyway, Freddy's is good too. The hamburgers are very thin though, but they have a good shake. Anyway, not that you care. Yeah. Okay, welcome. Okay, and what do you do there? Okay. And how many customer service people are there? 7. That's fun. That's good. Do you like it? Like, is that fun? Is that? Yeah. Good. Okay. So I just sorry, it seems like I'm picking on you, but it's because I know all about all of these other folks, mostly. Okay. Anything exciting happen? Like I saw you guys, when was that? That was like around Veterans Day, wasn't it? Because I had to leave early to go watch my son sing patriotic music. And that was thrilling. They sang Yankee Doodle. They did. Anyway, I learned some interesting things about that song, Yankee Doodle Dandy. It's an interesting song. It was very derogatory at the time. Like, we've made it into this great, like, American, anthem that all the kids love to sing. At the time, it was very, like, we hate you, Britain type derogatory. To call someone a Yankee Doodle Dandy was very mean. But now it's like cute. So that's good. We're becoming more inclusive. Anything amazing happen? Anything great going on? I mean, in like your leadership, your management, that type of thing. Anybody seeing incremental successes going on that you want to share that we can all celebrate together? Darn. Well, after this class, really? Better short meetings? That's good. Oh, yeah. Good. And how did you implement that? How did you get people on board with that? Yeah. Cool. And have you experienced any drawbacks to it? Any areas where you're like, oh, this isn't doing exactly what we wanted it to do? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I asked that because like I'm the fly in that ointment. Because like people will send me emails. I'm not much of an email guy. Like if you send me an email and I got to read through it and make a decision on it, I'm like, no, just schedule a meeting and let's talk. So yeah, really, yeah. I don't do. But then I'm like, I need to adjust my personal preferences so that everybody else can work better, rather than vice versa. Because it turns out I don't own the company, so I can't make those. Once you own the company, you can make those decisions. Turns out, we've learned that. All right. Anybody else? Anything fun going on? Oh yeah. Start with why. That's good. Cool. Good. That's awesome. That's a great one. If you haven't seen it, it's TED Talk, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And it's funny because he uses a whiteboard. I'm like, I think this might have been an early, he uses something like this. He's drawing on like a board not too dissimilar to this. And I thought, that must be like an early TED Talk before they advanced their technology. Yeah, but it's a good one. Yeah, yeah. I've noticed his name popping up a lot in like my news feed and things like that, and so I don't know if he's upping his Facebook advertising or something, but or Facebook just thinks that I want to know about Simon Sinek. That's a crazy deal. If you want to research something, like Facebook does all sorts of crazy things with us. They've done all sorts of research around like what happens if they send you more happy posts than unhappy posts, and how do you respond to that? They got in big trouble for that one. Because they were deliberately sending certain percentage of the population more negative posts into their newsfeed to see what would happen. And they would send a different population more positive posts into their newsfeed. And then they watched and saw that the computer behavior of those people who got more negative versus more positive. They got hit for that. But anyway, they control our whole lives. That's okay. I trust Zuckerberg. Okay, so today, I'm expecting after today's class that, Morgan, that in a couple of weeks, I will say what great things have happened, and you will have just a mountain of amazing things that will have happened. Yeah. Actually, I guess I'll dispute that later. Okay, you have a workbook there, and it's kind of like guided notes, whereas we talk through and have discussions. There will be little places for you to fill in notes. And then what we're going to do is there's a couple of key areas that we're going to talk about today. And at the end of each of the key areas, what I want to do is have people get together in groups and start thinking through something very similar to what Brenda just said. Okay, we're going to try to have shorter meetings and use email more to come to decision rather than many long meetings. We want to get to a place of a couple, 2 to 3 action items that you want to have happen coming out of each of these sections. Did I go to mute? Oh. Well, so far we've shown a lot of valuable things on the screen. So, yeah. Okay. So, for those of you who, if you want additional research on this, this actually 100% of this material comes from a series of John Maxwell books. I happen to be John Maxwell certified, and so really love his content, even more than Simon Sinek, I would say. So if you want deeper research on it, there's a series of books by Maxwell on it. If you're like, I really like this. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. As we talk about leadership success, we're going to focus in on 3 key areas that we want to put emphasis. First, and this is on the page, whatever of your notes, first page of your notes, there. Are there page numbers? Oh, somehow the first page of your note is page 6, but that's where all good note pages start, is page 6. The first thing we want to do is we want to know our purpose. If we're going to be a successful leader, knowing our purpose is a first crucial step. That's why in the first piece that we talked about right? Understanding our why, your little button, what's the driving purpose behind what you're doing. Second thing is growing. If we want to be successful in our leadership, successful in what we're doing, we're going to have to grow to our potential. And I talked a little bit about that. We'll review a little bit what we talked about at the lunch, because I'm betting that most of you have forgotten what I said. I know that's hard for me to accept, but I'm guessing it's true. Is that true, Morgan? Yes. Good. Yes. But we didn't forget that we had Qdoba. Or not Qdoba. Chipotle, right? We remember the food. Is it just me? Somebody told me that I'm very food-centric. Well, it's the best part of life. Why wouldn't you be? But everybody else remembered that we had veggie burritos from Chipotle at that thing, right? I'm not the only one who remembers that, right? So anything you can tie to food, turns out, becomes more memorable. All my favorite places are tied to food. If you've never been to Kansas City, it's one of my favorite cities. They have some of the best food. That's true. That's true. Which is now just crushing my spirit because you remember Scott's stories, but you don't remember. That's true. I guess every story I tell is gonna have. I gotta work on this. Let's write that down as a training objective for me. Every story I tell should have something to do with food, and maybe I should bring food. Maybe if I had more food. I did bring you a burrito, Brenda, but half of one. It was really more like a quarter, honestly, by the time I got it. Okay, so we're going to talk about that growing, because one of the great things about leadership and development is that we are all in process. And once we stop that development process, it usually marks the beginning of our downward descent of life. Growing is an ongoing, never-ending thing, and those people who find greater enjoyment in the growing process tend to be more successful than those people who don't. And you know, it's interesting. I've been kind of fascinated by this, just watching some of the political stuff that's gone on. As you look at some of the political leaders of the day, like, it seems as though they keep getting older. And maybe that's just me because I'm getting older, but I'm like, you know, like every presidential candidate that we had this past year was like over 70. And then, what's his name? Vice President? No. Yeah, Biden. He comes out and says, yeah, I'm not going to completely rule out a run for president in 4 years. And he'll be like 84 at the time or something. And we thought Reagan was old when he got elected, right? But this growing process, right? I mean, that's a lifelong thing. Because, Ben, in your quest to become president, you still have a few years before you reach your peak age, it turns out. Right? So this growing process is crucial. And then the last thing is sowing. Sowing the seeds of love. Sowing success for other people. And we're going to talk through each of those three things. These are the three areas we want to focus on. We want to focus on knowing our own purpose and drive, growing in our potential, and then sowing those seeds for success for others. So we're going to start with the R. That's why it's called Real Leadership. R. It's an acronym, and R is for relationships. The first area where we want to focus in and say, okay, if I want to become more successful in my organization, the first thing that's going to matter is relationships. And if I could get away with it, I would probably just say that, and then we would end class and sit around and chat about snow or whatever. Because really, if the only thing that you remember out of this entire class is, gosh, I need to put a focus and emphasis on building relationships, that would probably be sufficient. Because research study, all of the field research that they do, indicates that about 87% of leadership success has to do with how we work with people. Anybody had like a great boss or leader in another type of organization that seemed to be great at building relationships? That you want to tell us a little bit about? It doesn't matter. Tell us about Bill, because I don't know. So tell me, like, how would relationships relate with his? Wow. Yeah. Hmm. If they were driving a Winco truck, or just any type of. And did they know who he was, or just? Yeah. Huh. Right. Awesome. Anybody else? Any other stories about Bill or any other leaders that you've had that fit this, or maybe one that didn't? I've also got examples in my own career of people who didn't fit this one. None at Winco, I'm certain, or at Woodland Manufacturing, I'm sure of it. Anybody have a non-relationship builder boss that you had to work with? Is it your current boss? No. No, okay, good. All right. There's nobody in HR, right? Well, but the training, the happy side of HR, right? The first time I taught this class, there were like two, like, of the main HR, I don't know, like, but they were in like the real side of HR, not the happy, fun training side of HR, and we had to just be so careful. It was the worst. I kind of have like a Toby view of HR. Do you watch The Office? You know how Michael views Toby? That's kind of how I view HR. I send that clip out all the time. Did anybody watch The Office? So Michael is the boss. He hates Toby, who's in HR. Toby goes to Costa Rica to live, and it's like Michael's greatest day of his life. And then Toby decides to come back, and Michael doesn't know. So he's walking, and all of a sudden he turns around and sees him. It's so great. I should play you the clip during break if you want to. No! It's good. Okay, so your boss, not a relationship builder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now there's two key words here that I want to kind of emphasize: efficient and effective. And this concept of relationship building. Because when we talk about relationship building and the time that it takes to walk around, right? If you're the CEO of Winco, how efficiently are you using your time to walk around and do is it take backs? Is that what you called it? Go backs. Go backs. Oh, okay. Or yeah, he's out there collecting carts and talking, right? How efficient of a use of time is that for the leader of an organization? Do we think like, gosh, there's some, like from an ROI standpoint, return on investment, Is there something more efficient he could be doing? Yeah, get somebody else to do that. Yeah. Huh. Okay, so you're saying it's a good use of his time, which is this word down here, effective. Good use of your time versus an efficient use of your time. Which, by the way, my wife is quite flabbergasted that there's a new Winco going in over there by the Majestic Theater or something like that, right? And she swears it's too close to the one over on around the corner. Just so you know, she's quite concerned. as a staunch Winco shopper, she's like, they're too close. Why are they building these two buildings so close to each other? They should build one in Cuna, for example. Matt, what do you think? Huh. Yeah. Okay, so Matt just said something that I don't want to miss, and that was the length of time and the consistency with which Bill seems to have done this. Yeah. 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 Oh. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to put a mental flag because we're going to loop back around to this near the end of class today, this idea of the consistency and duration of how long Bill did it. But, Matt, you've just hit on it, right? It seems potentially ineffective or inefficient, but was highly effective. And as leaders in our relationship work, I think this is a concept that we have to make sure we don't lose sight of. Is that at times building relationships might seem inefficient. There's got to be something more useful with my time that I could be doing. And yet, that inefficiency seems to create great effectiveness. Charles, I was recently listening to a podcast, Charles Duhigg. He wrote a book called Habits, which is really good. And he also just came out with another book about efficiency. And this is what he talked about. He talked about how at the beginning of a meeting, those really annoying 5 to 10 minutes where everyone's just kind of like chit-chatting and talking about getting out of Cuna and your geo, right? You might consider chains. Can you get chains for a geo? Maybe, right? Right, but those minutes seem very ineffective, right? We should get in, we should start on time, we should get the boom, 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 get work done, and boom, we're off working. And yet, it's in those times of connectedness, relationship building, right? You worked for the guy for 2 years, he didn't even know you were married, right? It's difficult to have effective leadership if we don't build relationships. And so it's that shift of mindset. So this is on your next page. I believe it's page 9 in your notes. And there's those percentages. is that some people add to our lives, some people subtract from our lives, some people multiply, and other people divide our lives. Now, what we find is that addition usually is intentional, and that subtraction is usually, what's the opposite of intentional? We'll just call it normal. If we're just normally going through our day, just doing the things that we normally do on a day-to-day basis, it's most likely that we are subtracting from relationships and interactions and the connectedness. And that's for one simple reason, that all people are selfish. Right? The person I care most about is me. So if I'm just living my normal life and the person I care most about is me, then every time I interact with you, the person I'm thinking about initially is me. And how's it going? Good. Although all the best seats have been taken, unless okay. One left on the back row. So, right, if I'm just going through my normal day. Now, if I really want to add to the lives of others, add to connectedness, add to relationships, it almost always has to be intentional. Very few people do this on accident. So that's what we're going to talk about, is I'm going to give you a few kind of rules. It's at the bottom there of page 9. Well, I guess starting in the middle. A few rules around how do we become more intentional in our relationship building. Does everybody have the notes? Am I right? Page 9? Oh, 7. Oh, sorry. It was wrong. Well, my numbering is off on here. Okay, I'm 2 pages off on my copy. Okay, page 7. Sorry. So I'm going to give you a couple of relationship rules. Number one relationship rule, and I don't know that they're in any particular order, but love and accept yourself is actually our first rule. I posted a quote on Facebook the other day that in this group of salespeople that I work with on a daily basis, and it was a quote I found on Pinterest, actually. I do quite a bit on Pinterest. Turns out it's not just for women. A lot of manly things on Pinterest. Trust me, Chris, you should get a Pinterest account. I actually look at a lot of palette projects. I look at palette projects on Pinterest. That way I don't have to actually do them, right? Because that's what we do. We go on Pinterest, we look at what other people do, and we think that would be cool, and then we look at Pinterest some more. And that stops us from having to do anything. I collected a whole bunch of palettes, and then it snowed 5 feet, and I'm like, dang it, I started to work on palettes. Anyway, but the quote that I found was, if you made a list of all the things you love, how long would your list get before you listed yourself? And I'm thinking of all the food that I would list before I ever got Kansas City barbecue, sushi, my 2 favorites. In case you want to know. Sushi, my favorite food. Which is funny, because every time, I think I may have told you this. I may have told you. Every time my wife says, where do you want to go to dinner? I'm like, I couldn't care less. Because there's only 2 types of food to me. Sushi and everything else. If we're not going out to sushi, I really couldn't care less where else we go. Because it's all lumped together in the same level of food. And so, if it's not sushi, you pick, honey. Other than Olive Garden. I'm like that rare person who doesn't like Olive Garden. Anybody else not like Olive Garden? Good. Oh, good. 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 And why? I know. Like, who wants to go out and eat spaghetti? I could make that at home. Right? Oh, well, I do love cereal. We're gonna have to talk about that at break, Chris. We'll talk about that. But I'm like, my wife gets fettuccine Alfredo for like $18. I'm like, honey, I can go to Winco and buy that much cheaper and make it for you at home. Why am I spending, anyway, Laura, why are you not an Olive Garden fan? Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I worked there for 3 years as a team. Anyway, how do we get on these things? It all comes back to right. But that's I think that's an important question, right? As a leader, like a healthy level of self-confidence, I think, is important. A healthy level of feeling confident and comfortable with yourself. Because here's the problem. Most leaders who don't have a level of comfort and self-confidence then tend to act in very insecure ways. And acting in very insecure ways is almost never a recipe for success in leadership. Right? So as we think about these leaders who are not very successful, it probably stems, at least a beginning, from a bit of insecurity and lack of self-confidence. Now, how you do that, go check out on Pinterest how to love yourself, right? But this is crucial. This is important. And later I'll give you a chance to self-assess how you feel about this, right? And how confident you feel. Okay, next one. Next one, number 2, is put energy into being likable. The problem with relationship building and connecting is every connecting activity takes energy. And Don, you probably experienced this, right? Customer service people who work all day long with customers, and then at the end of the day, they're like totally exhausted, right? And we might think, how could someone who sits and talks on the phone all day long end up totally exhausted, right? Because it takes energy to connect. Every single time you want to connect with someone, it's going to take energy. And so we have to kind of be prepared and go into it knowing it's going to take energy to do this. Don, do you do anything to kind of help your customer service people prepare for that, the drain on energy it takes as they go throughout their day? Having to connect with people? Yeah. Is there anything they do to kind of like combat that so that at the end of the day they're not grouchy and grumpy? There you go. That's a great thing. I might come visit. Anyone else seen something that works in this realm of energy? Paul. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Not bad. Not a bad idea. Because very few people call in just to tell you how great you're doing, right? As you think about your teams, right? The amount of energy necessary to connect with your team. And sometimes, like when you get up from your desk or walk out of your office door, right? It's like, oh, great. Now I got to go talk to people. This is really going to be terrible. Right? Because of the energy it takes. So you might think about some of the things that you could do to either prepare for that or to recover from that, whether that's listening to some music. For me, like my homepage website is Dilbert, because every day I just read my little Dilbert. I get like a little like jolt of like, oh, that's very funny. And half the time I print them off and go put it on the desk of the person that it best relates to. And so everybody knows if they get a Dilbert on their desk that it's come from me. Right? Because it does take energy to connect. And we just have to be prepared for that, aware of it, and know, gosh, if I'm in a situation where I'm going to have to be connecting at a high level, it's going to take energy. And every time I walk into the door and I'm going to maybe walk around and talk with people, I know that's going to require energy and I have to be prepared for it. The next one is an interesting one, and that is remember their names. I know. This is why this class is good. You can just get everybody a name tag, just like in this class. and have them, I'm not very good at this. Anybody good at remembering names? How do you do it? Anyone great at it? I'll be honest, I'm not good at it. Brenda, you're good at it? Oh, what are you supposed to... Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I've heard that. Say their name 3 times. Say their name back. I've heard, although, yeah, that doesn't, I struggle with that because I swear I say their name back and then I'm like, wait, what did I just say? But I'm that way all the time. 90% of the time I'm like, what did I just say? I can't even remember what I was talking about. So that's not new. Anybody else good with remembering names? Anything you do to try to do it better? Yeah, me neither. I don't have much help for you here. Say their name 3 times. Say their name back. Write it down. I have heard and I've had leaders before who did this that got like 3x5 cards of personnel. Which is another hilarious Office episode. Yeah, it's all about, everything is about the Office. I'm so sad that anyway. Which is what I tried to do yesterday with the name of somebody that they told to me, and I was like, trying to make a connection. So yeah, you try to think of a song or another person you know. That's always a fun thing, because you're like, oh yeah, you're Rebecca because I remember the other Rebecca. But then it gets hard, because then you're connecting all sorts of people. Laura, have you tried that? No, the person does that. Okay, and how does he... Huh. Is it a good song? Guess you can make up songs, right? Okay. All right. But honestly, if you have a lot of people in your organization, you know, if you have to have 3x5 cards to jot things down, even if you jot down that they're married, that might be helpful. And then as you're going into your one-on-one, you know, at least that's a good time to know their name. But nobody in this group like manages a team that huge. Am I right? And it's fairly small groups. Yes. Okay. Oh, that is a lot. Right. Calling him nothing might be better than calling him the wrong name, right? Yeah. Yeah. Driver friend. Mm. Yeah. 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 So again, the efficient versus effective, it might not seem like an efficient use of our time to spend some time memorizing names and key information about people, but when you're able to make that connection with them, it's worthwhile. I will tell you, it's kind of funny. I had a boss once who sent out an email wanting to set up one-on-one interviews with all of us, and said in the interview, I want to talk with you about your family, what some of your hobbies are, things that you like, you know, how many kids you have. It was all, you know, like real personal stuff. And it was interesting because every single person on the team had a negative response to that. And so if you want to know that stuff about me, that should come up in natural, normal conversations. Don't set up a 30-minute meeting to ask me all the personal questions about myself, right? So authenticity here is also important in the energy that it takes to connect with people. And the second one is kind of kind of connected, which is focus on their interests. In relationship building, it's always important to remember everybody's favorite person is themselves. And so the more that we can talk about and focus on and be connected with their interests, it's important, right? It's when somebody mentioned, was it Bill that would talk about fishing? Or, yeah. Which again is challenging when you lead 65 guys to know, you know, the interests of any of them. And maybe sometimes work is their only interest, but that's what you're always hoping for. That's HR's dream, is that the only thing that people ever think about is their jobs. Right, but the more that we can connect with things that they're interested in and like, and again, the more we can remember that. That's why, like, you know, it seems cheesy, but having a 3x5 card of people and even jotting down a note or two to help remind ourselves of some of the things they like. The next one is request the help of others. Because if you really want to build solid relationships with people, requesting help, working together, working on projects together, giving trust and confidence to them is a highly valuable way to do that. And it's kind of the opposite of micromanagers who struggle. Is that pulling people into the process can be very empowering for those people to develop solid relationships. And again, it's sad, well, I guess I've had both. Yes. So give me maybe like, is there a specific thing you're thinking of? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Good. How would you develop the relationship with someone who don't bother asking him? Right. Anybody thoughts for Chris? Mm-hmm. Like that thought. Love it. Other thoughts? How would we work with this? Yes. Yeah. So ignoring the HR person in the room, the one question that pops in is why is he still in the position? Oh, okay. Maybe there's, I don't know, maybe at break we could find someone who could have, like, one of my favorite sayings from Maxwell is he said, don't try to turn ducks into eagles. You'll be frustrated and so will they. Ducks are ducks and eagles are eagles, right? At some point you have to identify, I love the suggestions, right? Those are the efforts that a leader can make. When we talk about circle of influence and circle of control, what's within my control? Everything you said is perfectly within your control. I can do those things. And if that's been done and you look and you say, I need an eagle and this person's a duck, trying to put a duck through eagle school just makes the instructor bang your head against the wall and the guy turns out to be a duck. So put him in a duck pond and he'll be perfectly happy and effective and do great work. But yeah, that's an HR, HR thing. So, Chris, I think what we've seen here, right, is this the leadership balance of saying what's within my sphere of control to do? What can I do to see if there's any opportunity for growth here? And if we come to the conclusion that, no, there's not an opportunity for growth here, then we have to ask the next question. Okay, so now what do I do with the person who is in a position? If they're doing their job and, like, he's really great at what he does, he just doesn't want to go move beyond that, then that may be the answer too. If he's not great at what he does and he doesn't want to move beyond it, might set up a meeting with an HR representative. I don't know how your organization works. Mine's the same way. They've been trying to fire me for years, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They haven't. It's not true. It's not true. Yeah. So I think in answer to your question, I think it is right. We're presenting opportunities. As leaders, we try to present opportunities for people to grow and develop. Forcing people into it, I think, is as fraught with danger as the micromanaging side. Hmm. Oh, okay. Hmm. Yeah. But if it's task-oriented, right, if it's like, hey, this is the work that needs to be done today and you're refusing or unwilling to do it, that's maybe a different thing. Right. Right. And one leadership idea, as we talk about building relationships, and again, this is kind of an idea that's great in theory, and then you have to try to get as close to it in practice as you can, is that leaders try to never do anything alone. Right? You always want to be requesting someone help you with everything. And it's that concept of building the people under you. I dealt with that with a leader once. She was complaining about someone, a direct report of hers, who wasn't doing everything she thought she should do. And I said, well, does she know what she should do? Well, I think so. She should do this, 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 and this, just like I do. And I said, well, have you ever written down what you do? Have you created kind of an SOP type, right? Is it clear what the expectation is? And for her, it was this realization that she was expecting this other person to behave the way she was because she kind of thought, and this is one of the problems, motivated, driven people always struggle with this, is because you're motivated and driven, you do things naturally that other people don't do naturally. So then you get to a place of success and you look around and you go, why aren't other people behind me doing this? Well, it's not natural for them. It was natural for you because you're motivated and driven. They're not motivated and driven. They should just figure it out, because I figured it out. I know, but you're a genius, and you have to work with non-geniuses. I deal with this all the time. Right? And so oftentimes we have to help those people along. And so we request help in doing things to try to give them that opportunity to learn how we're doing. Which again goes back to our efficient and effective. Might seem a bit inefficient, which is a challenge in a workplace, right? Like, so much stuff has got to get done. Oftentimes I don't have time to bring this person along, right? It's got to get done. And the fastest way to get it done is for me to do it. But where possible, the problem with that is then you're always doing it. And there's no growth in that. Did that help? Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Next one is add value to people. Oh, not on my computer. Where's my clicker? Boom. There it is. Add value to people. And luckily, on the next page, there's 3 fun keys on how we do that. If you're thinking, how do I add value to people? 3 fun keys on how to do it. One is, and it's interesting, truly value people. The way we add value to people is by seeing them as valuable people. If we see them as less valuable people, we'll never invest the time and effort and energy into helping to add value to them. I'm sure you've probably heard it before, right? That most people will live up to or down to just about what we expect of them. And just about as valuable as we think a person is, that's just about how they will live. And some of that is our own bias, right? Because if we think somebody's great, this is important. This is crucial. If you're getting to like a new position, or you know, you take on a new job or something like that, in the first like 6 weeks, you really have to just crank out a high amount of work and show yourself as incredibly valuable, because then you'll be seen as incredibly valuable, and then you can skate for years on that. Right? I mean, you can just, once people see you as highly valuable, you have to do next to nothing because they think you're highly valuable. So you must be. And their bias, it's great. I promise. Try it out. All of you are probably seen as highly valuable. I encourage you to try this. Just start slacking. Do less. It'll work. I promise. Don't worry about it, Kelsey. It's fine. It's fine. But some of it is our bias, right? Someone that we see as highly valuable will do something and we assign a value to it. Someone that we see as not highly valuable may do the same thing, but we assign a different value to it. If we think they're highly valuable and they do something, it's because they're hardworking. If we don't think they're highly valuable and they do something, they got lucky. Right? And it's all in how we view them. So the first way that we add value to people is start with ourselves, and we think through, how am I seeing this person? How am I interacting with them? Second key is that we make ourselves more valuable. Which is why I love this class that you guys are in. And I love the commitment to self-improvement, the commitment to making yourself more valuable. It's hard to add value to people if you're not currently going through the process of growth. There's always this this river effect, right, of constantly adding to yourself so that you constantly have more to give. The opposite example is a reservoir. If you become a reservoir, you have a fixed amount of water in you, and once it's gone, and you're done. And so we always want to try to be more like a river than a reservoir, because a river is constantly flowing, growing, adding more water as it goes. And then the third one is know and relate to what they value. Oh, it's not even up there. Why am I hitting that button? Know and relate to what they value. So if I want to add value to people, I start with my own mental approach to them. I start with my efforts to grow and develop, which is interesting, right? As a leader, I say, I want to add more value. First two keys are all about you. It's your mental approach to it, and it's your personal growth. And then we can finally turn and know and relate to what they value. We add value to people in the areas that they value. Anybody been through the love language thing or familiar with it? Anyone know their love language? No? It's like gifts, time, physical touch, acts of kindness. Oh, there you go. Good, good. I think my wife is all of them. Okay, so quality time and words of affirmation. Those are things that Paul values, right? So if somebody wants to show appreciation to Paul, those are the things you would do. Quality time, words of affirmation. Now, if somebody gave Paul a gift, that would be nice, but to Paul, that's not necessarily, right? Like you may spend $10 on Paul, but it's only getting you a $4 value because Paul doesn't value that as highly. Right? And this is where adding value to people really becomes a fun challenge for leaders if you kind of take that challenge, is coming to know and understand what they value and being a person who values them enough and has enough to give that I look and see what they value and I can add value there. My boss said that to me yesterday. What's one thing you want in 2017? And I told her. And if it happens in 2017, then I'll feel great. She could do probably 3 dozen other things, and I'd be like, yeah, but you didn't do this. Right? Because there's one thing that I value. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll never forget one of the first gifts I gave to my wife. I went out and bought this basket. I think it was even a laundry basket, because we needed one. But then I filled it full of all sorts of just delicious snacks at Winco. Like Pringles and chips and candy. It was like the perfect gift. Couldn't have been a better gift. A basket full of treats and snacks. It was awesome. And she didn't think so. But that's exactly the type of gift I would want. If I got a basket full of candy and snacks, oh, I'd be in heaven. Right? And so I was giving the gift that I wanted to get. And I remember she got me something else, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Right? And it wasn't anything. It was much more sentimental. And I was like, I don't care about sentimental. Give me a can of Pringles. Anyway. Okay, there's a couple more that are in your notes on page, I think page 8 for you. Rule number 7 is follow the 101% principle. This is interesting. Find the 1% that we agree on and expand it. John Maxwell points out that oftentimes we do the exact opposite. Oftentimes we focus in on the areas where we disagree and focus on that. And oftentimes we do that as leaders, right? We really see, and it's highlighted highly, the areas where we disagree, the things that are areas of difference. And so we don't move forward on maybe the 99% of stuff that we agree on because of the 1% that we can't agree on. And if we really want to build relationships, we do the opposite. Number 8 is love people more than opinions. Number 9 is follow the golden rule. And number 10 is seek out resources to help you grow in relationship skills. Building relationship is a skill much like just about any other skill. And the more that we practice it, the more that we dedicate intentional time and intentional thinking to it, the better we'll get at it. Okay. Next page is fun. Page 9. There's a fun little self-evaluation on each of these laws that you can fill out. And you're not going to share this with anybody. I'm not even going to ask for it. This is just for you to do some thinking. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to go through page 9 and think through on the next page, there are a bunch of questions for you. This is just kind of some personal questions that you can take time to think about and jot down. We're not going to take time in class to fill those out. But the next page has a note page. And I mentioned that we want to get to the, do you have a note page? There's no note page? Oh, that's why my pages are different on here. My note pages were taken out. So let's see. What's the back page look like? Yeah. Okay, there's space at the bottom of the very back page. Or you can write on the front. So you might write relationships and put a line, and we're going to come up with 2 or 3 things. We've talked for, gosh, like an hour now about building relationships. So the only thing that matters is what you're going to do about it, so that in a few weeks when I come and visit you at your place of work, and I say, hey, what's happened over the last couple of weeks? You have just this incredible flood of things to tell me. Matt, that's what I expect. So if your name starts with an M, you guys are grouped together. So kind of find a place. Morgan, the other 2 M's are over there, so you might have to go over there. And just kind of jot down an idea or 2, share it in your group. If your name starts with a B or a C, you guys are grouped together. And if your name starts with any other letter, you're grouped together. And so that should put us in groups of like 3 or 4. And then just talk through, what are some of the things that you're going to do as a result of the things that have popped into your head from what we've talked about. Take about 3 minutes to do that. Plus, this will give you an opportunity to stand up and stretch. That's not derogatory in any way. The others. Maybe I should have put the B, C, and D together. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay, anybody have kind of an action item that you're excited about that you want to share with the rest of us? Oh, good. Mm-hmm. Great. Great. Love it. And I happened to overhear Ben talking about one of the struggles with this, right, is that some people are far more interested in connecting and building relationships, maybe even to the point of like detrimental to work or life balance, right? Right. Which is always a struggle when, as a leader, you're trying to connect. You were, I think I heard you telling a story of a guy who wanted to hang out all the time and hang out after work. Yeah. Those people are the worst. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah. So I appreciated that thought, right, is that leaders have to find that balance too of, gosh, how do I create these relationships and then deal with the people who want to just come and sit in my office and talk for an hour, right? And it's like, okay, we're connected. Right? Yeah, yeah. At this point, we're neither efficient nor effective. And how you manage that can be a challenge. One little hint that was given to me is always look at your watch. If somebody comes in and says, hey, do you have a minute? Always look at your watch. Yeah, I've got about 2 minutes. Even if you don't, right? Even if you don't have a meeting. That kind of sets the expectation, right? Because there are those people. And as a connector talker, I know that I've done that where I'm like, oh crap, I just spent 30 minutes in the office with the boss and I'm sure this was the last thing he wanted to do. And so anyway, but he was very good at always saying, oh no, I love it, come in anytime, let's chat. He was very much different than the boss who set up the 30-minute conversations, forcing us to talk about our personal lives, because he just had an open personality to where you wanted to talk with him. Okay, the next thing, we're going to hang out where you are real quick, because I'm going to give you our next assignment. The next one is equipping. This is the E in real. One is too small a number to achieve greatness. So there's some, yeah, what page are we on? Sorry, 12. Is there a note page in there? I didn't think so. Okay, so page 12, E is equipping, and there's some reasons why we don't. As leaders, there are reasons why we sometimes don't do as good as we could at equipping others to be successful, and including others into kind of the growth process that we're going through. Why we don't necessarily delegate as well as we could, we don't necessarily give others what they need to be successful. So I want you to just kind of brainstorm in your groups, what are some of the reasons why that might happen? Why are we not always as good as we could be at equipping others to be successful? Okay, if you've found a new favorite spot to sit, you're welcome to stay there. Otherwise, you can head back to your other favorite spot to sit. Both favorites, grape snow cone. Okay, share with us one or two ideas. I think I heard trust. I think I heard that word spoken consistently. Other reasons why we don't equip people. We don't trust that they're going to do it the way we hope it should be done. Mm. That's so important. We're going to talk about that, but man, that's so true. Right? Some leaders, and that's why back here, that one, right? This is where leaders who don't have self-confidence and a level of acceptance of themselves start to act in ways that are very insecure. And you see that in leaders, that they start to act very insecure by not allowing anybody else to be successful. Because if they're successful, it might mean that I'm not. It's the small pie theory of growth. There's only so much pie, and if you get a bigger piece of the pie, that means that my piece of the pie must be small. And that's compared with like the expanding pie, which is, my piece of the pie is big. The reality is the pie will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Those are the people who multiply our lives. When we talk about people who add, people who subtract, people who multiply are those who believe the pie will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Good. Other ideas as why we don't always do this as well as we could? Don. Such a pain. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What do you do about that? It'll take more time to get somebody else to do it. Yeah. Yeah. When I was teaching those dang Cub Scouts about tying the half hitch, I said to the one little Cub Scout next to me, you start with just kind of an overhead knot. I said, like when you tied your shoes, I said, it's like how when you start to tie your shoes, he said, I never learned to tie my shoes. And he's like 9. You never learned to tie your shoes? No. All right, well, guess you're going to have Velcros from Payless for a while, but which is fine. That's totally fine. Yeah, it's fine. How big can you get those Spider-Man Velcro shoes? Those come in size 10 adult, right? But eventually you have to take the time to teach the kid how to tie the shoes. Otherwise, just be prepared for a life of Vans, right? Slip-ons forever. I don't know. I thought, son, maybe we should just stop everything right now and let me teach you. But then I thought, well, maybe his parents have tried and he's unwilling to learn how to tie his shoes, right? Maybe we should fire him from shoe tying. Not that you should fire the guy. Yeah, there's got to be a position within the organization. Has he identified? Is there a place he wants to be? Is he qualified for it? Oh. Is it your job? He's like, I just want to be the boss. Oh, what a skewed view of management. Yeah. Oh, did you mean self-employed? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk through a few of the reasons. There's some reasons on your page there. Let's talk through. You guys have mentioned many of them. Number one, it's hard work. Equipping others is hard work. The fallacy, and that's the fallacy, right? I want to get into management so it's easier, so I can pick what I do, so that I don't have to, do these things. Oh my gosh, there's nothing more challenging than management. That's why people hate it sometimes. I'll never forget, I was in a sales job, and I had decided I was going to leave that sales job, and the manager came to me and said, gosh, we hate to see you leave. You're one that we thought we could maybe build into management. I said, are you crazy? I've seen what you do. You work more hours, you deal with more stress, and I make more money than you as a salesman. Because, let's be honest, I was good at it. That's funny. Why would I want your job, right? Nobody wants management because it's hard. If you do it well, it's a challenge, right? Number 2, we underestimate people. This is where we get into that trust issue. We often underestimate people. We underestimate their skills and abilities. Or we underestimate their ability to grow into it. They may not be able to do it now, but do we believe they could grow into it? Great example of this is in parenting, right? Like, at what point do you let your kids do something you're fairly certain they can't do, but they're never going to do it until they've done it 3 times and failed? And you see this at work too, right? Like, I don't know how to do this thing. The only way I'm going to learn how to do this thing is by doing this thing, but nobody will give me a chance to do the thing because I've never done the thing. And so how am I ever going to learn how to do it? Which is another incredibly time-consuming challenge of leadership, is you may have to practice doing it in an environment that's not detrimental to the business. It's why, did you coach soccer? Do I remember that? Tennis. Right, it's why you practice tennis. And you practice tennis serves, so that in the match, it's not the first time you've ever done it. Because if it's the first time you've ever done it in the match, you're in trouble. Right? And so oftentimes for our employees, we're asking them to do something for the first time in a high-stress, high-impact environment, and then they fail, and it's no wonder. It's the first time they've ever tried to serve a tennis ball. Okay. But what do you do about that as a leader? How do you possibly create an environment where they could practice it 3 or 4 times before they have to do it for realsies? Yeah. 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 Which is a challenge, right? Because to the first one, it's hard work. The next one, we enjoy doing the task ourselves. Sometimes we just like doing it. Why would I have somebody else do something I like doing? It's interesting because I'm in that position right now. In the job that I do, we do a lot of training, and my boss loves to train. And so she takes like the vast majority of all training opportunities. And all the rest of us who love to train are like, hey, we'll just sit back here and watch you do all the training, even though that's what we like to do and thought we were supposed to. And so it's very hard, right? And you may have people in your organization who are the same way. There's something you're doing because you really like doing it, and others may want to do it too. So then you have to like decide, okay, do I give up this thing that I really like to do to help develop others? And I had a boss who did that. He also loved to train. And I'll never forget, because I wasn't in a position. First thing he did is he pulled me in and gave me a bunch of the work that he liked to do, but saw that I had potential to do it, and it changed my whole career. Number 4, this is what was talked about. We receive ego strength from being needed. Right? These are those insecure leaders who do things because it makes them look good. Number 5, we're in the habit of doing everything. If it's just our normal, everyday, habitual process, habits are hard to break, and so we just keep doing it. We want to keep control is another reason. And number 7, we don't notice the leadership potential in those around us. And page 13 gives you an opportunity to kind of, is it page 13? Am I still 2 behind? Yep, okay. Page 13 gives you a good opportunity to think through your own state on these things. So go ahead and self-assess yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't tell you those. Great leaders grow their vision from me to we. From me to we. I didn't tell you those, I'm sorry. Like 5 minutes. Is that okay? Oh, do we need to go now? We can go now. Okay, when you're done with that, we'll take a 15-minute break. And Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting leadership dilemma, right? Is how much work gets done when you're not there. I know when it for a few months, both my boss and her boss were both remote. One lived in Michigan, one lived in Nevada. And so when both bosses were out of the office, oh man, like Friday, we were recording this Friday about 2 o'clock, like the office was dead. But I was there. I was there till probably 5:30 every Friday. Every Friday. Yeah, because I love my job. Who wants to go home? Especially with these snow days. So I think I may have told you, my wife and I, we just have the 7 kids. So when snow day comes, it's like, oh my gosh, what do you do with 7 kids on a snow day? Plus, they've just had like 2 weeks out of school because in CUNA we didn't go back to school on Tuesday. They had Tuesday off as well. So my kids still haven't gone back to school from Christmas break. It's like, oh my gosh, brutal. I can't wait for tomorrow. Like, there better not be a snow day tomorrow. I will be very upset. I know, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, it's going to warm up eventually, and the roads will come back, and then it will freeze that night, and the roads will be just their normal ice sheets. So we got that to look forward to. Always thinking optimistically. Okay, so we've talked about, you've done a self-assessment. We've talked about a few of the things that hold us back from equipping others. Let's talk about a couple of laws. This is page 14. A couple of laws around teamwork. The first one is the law of significance. We talked about that. One is too small a number to achieve greatness. Anything significant you want to do in your life, it's going to take more people than just yourself. Your team is going to have to get involved towards your shared vision, which is very important. Is your team aware of the shared vision? And that's what we talked about in that class a few months ago, was coming up with that simple little button statement. What is the shared vision of the team? And I keep using the word shared vision because that's important. If they're not a part of that vision, most people don't work hard for something they don't care about. I'm trying to think of an example in my life of a time where I really busted my butt for something that I couldn't really care less about. And I can't come up with one. Right? Like, if you don't care, you just, that's the definition. You don't care. And so, part of a leader's job is creating the shared vision and then getting buy-in on the shared vision. And so, you can't do that by yourself. The second one is the law of Mount Everest. I like this one. Is the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork elevates. And we use Mount Everest because it's the tallest mountain, right? If you're just going to go, I don't know, hike the butte out in CUNA, you can probably pull that one off by yourself. No need for help. If you're going to climb Mount Everest, right? Even who was the guy, Henry, the British guy who did it first? Anyway, he had his special little Sherpa friend with him, who actually did all the work. He just is less famous, even though I can't remember either of their names. But as soon as you want to climb Mount Everest, you've got to have help. The bigger the challenge you want to attack, the greater the need for teamwork. If you're okay with very, very small goals, then you can probably accomplish them by yourself. As soon as you want something more, you're going to have to employ other people. And I thought about this on the way in, actually. I do I have a little YouTube channel that I'm trying to do. And it turns out that in order for your YouTube channel to be successful, you have to populate it with content. That's crucial. Right? Turns out you have to create videos, which, from the research that I've done, the best way to get better at creating videos, create videos. The more videos you create, the better you get at it. And so for like 6 months, have had this goal of, I need to create more videos, and then I don't. I even have the content for my next video all created. I have the prop that I need sitting at home. For some reason, I haven't done it. But on my way in here, I was thinking, you know what I need? There's a wonderful gal in Nampa who runs a business called Pepper Shock Media. Ray Allen is her name, and Pepper Shock Media is a marketing company that helps with primarily online advertising and online presence, and they specialize in YouTube. And I thought, if I really wanted to do this, I should shell out $500, and I should hire Pepper Shock Media. $500 will get you about an hour. And I should buy an hour with somebody on Ray Allen's team, and I always remember her name because I associate it with basketball great Ray Allen, even though her spelling is R-H-E-A, Ray Allen. And I should invest in the help of another person. All by myself, I struggle to get this YouTube channel up and running. If I got somebody else involved, it would probably help me. And the same is true with every challenge. The bigger the challenge, the more you need your team. The last one is, oh no, that is less. Just those two. So we have some questions. Question number one about, this law is about gathering and growing a team. Those two blanks. The law of Mount Everest, it's about gathering and growing a team. So 3 questions. What is my dream? What is that shared vision? Who is on my team? And what should my dream team look like? And Jacob, I keep coming back to your example because it's just like there's no end to the run of how impactful that story is, right? If you've got a shared vision, the next 2 questions are who's on my team and what does my dream team look like? I don't think you've got the dream team. Yeah, right. Right. And so part of a leader's job is how do I get from where I am to where I need to be? Who do I need to get on my team? And it's interesting is that if you want people who are a certain, and in larger corporations this tends to be a little less true, but if you want people who are a certain way, it helps to be that way yourself. Highly energetic people attract highly energetic people, usually. Unless they're too highly energetic, because then they suck all the oxygen out of the room, and anybody else who wants any any of the limelight leaves. But I doubt any of you struggle with that. I'm not sensing that from any of you. That may be more in the trainer-teacher realm, where we get concerned about how much publicity and notoriety we get. Anybody else deal with that? Don, is that a problem in your realm? No? Okay. I didn't think so. I think that's just a me problem. Right. But those are the 3 questions. Who's on your team and what does your dream team look like? Where are the gaps? What would you need to add or develop in order to have the team that you need? And then that goes back to the question, what's within my sphere of control to do that? Okay, and then there's some fun questions there for you to answer on your own time. We're not going to take the time to answer them today, but on your own time. Okay. So we'll do this a little bit differently. I need someone, as you think about this idea of equipping, and as we've talked about it for the last half hour, I need one person to volunteer for us. Something that's popped into your head, something you're going to start doing to try to get better at equipping others. Anybody have an idea they want to share with us that's popped into your head as we've talked? Oh, good. Hmm. Hmm. Very cool. Love that. Okay, Jacob, now this is where this gets fun. Because now you get to select someone in the room that you'd like to hear another idea of what we could do to help equip others. So you get to pick someone and you say, so-and-so, tell me one more idea. Who would you like to hear from? I'm doing the same thing he's doing. So Morgan, this is where you can have fun. You can give us an idea, or you can pick somebody else and say, I'd actually love to hear what, and then you pick somebody else. Oh, good. All right, Kelsey, what are you going to do to equip others? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great. Are there performance checks that will indicate to you at which point she may be failing? Yeah. Yeah. Which may be the only, right, that's one of the things that you try to put in place as a manager, is you want to be able to tell as quickly as possible if something's not uh, hitting on all cylinders. What's going to be the indicator that this person is not able to handle this? So that as soon as you see that it's not being handled, you can quickly help. And that typically happens through consistent checkpoints, right? Whether that's a weekly one-on-one, or if you utilize some kind of, like a smart sheet is one that we use, where there's tasks, and once you've completed the task, you go in and click that you've completed the task, and everybody on the whole team has access. It's like a shared Excel spreadsheet, basically. Everybody has access to it. Once you've completed a task, you go in and click it as completed, and there's a date associated with when it's supposed to be completed. So if I haven't clicked that it's completed by the time I was supposed to, then my boss knows either I haven't clicked the button or I'm behind. Right? So it's a kind of a checkpoint system. It's one of the things that allows managers to sleep better at night, is the ability to look and see and feel like, okay, if something starts to go wrong, at least I'm going to know about it. One of the challenges that we run into is we give somebody a project and then we don't check in with them again until the project was supposed to have been done, only to find out that it's not done, and now I'm in total crisis, right? Because now I'm 2 weeks behind. If I can find that out when I'm a day behind, I can make adjustments. Paul? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I'm lucky, because I'm not the person who has to set up the smart sheets. Because when I talk about setting up smart sheets, I'm like, oh, this has got to be the worst job in the world. But somebody loves it. So they do. Yeah, I just like that I could just go into my project, see what I'm supposed to do, when it's supposed to be done by, and boom, boom, boom. Okay, Kelsey, are we done with equipping, or do you want to call on somebody else? Oh, no, it's up to you. That's the thing. Matt, anything you're going to start doing to try to equip others better? Love it. Great. Awesome. Awesome. creating the right tool that they'll need, right? Love it. Very good. Tools are oftentimes the struggle. It's interesting, right? When we think about our own life, how often we use tools to accomplish a task. So if there's a task that somebody's not able to accomplish, it could be that an effective tool might help them. We don't always think of creating a tool to help somebody, but just about everything we ever do, we use a tool to get it done. And so, if there's something that someone on your team can't do, you might think, what's a tool that could help them? Whether that's an SOP or a smart sheet or an electronic clicker, thinking of tools is helpful. And again, people who are smart and driven, you struggle with this because you figured it out, right? You did it without the tool because you were smart and driven, so you just figured out how to make it work. Somebody else is struggling, and you're like, well, why can't they just figure it out too? Well, they may need a tool to help them. Okay, good. Matt, anybody else you want to hear from on equipping? We're good. Okay. Anybody want to? Anybody like bummed you didn't get called on? Since it took us about 15 minutes for Jacob to start it, I'm assuming that nobody else wants to say anything. But Paul. Mm. Mm. Very good. Excellent. Okay, our next letter is A for attitude. If we want to improve our leadership skills, attitude is a place to do that. Fun quote from Hugh Downs: a happy person is not a person with a certain set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes. Research indicates that that's true. About 50% of our kind of attitude and the way that we approach things is kind of native disposition. The other 50% is circumstances and choice, right? So like everyone's born either kind of naturally happy or naturally grumpy, but that's only about 50% of what we actually communicate. Okay, so let's talk about a few of the keys to this idea of attitude. So they did psychologists did this research to try to understand what helps in success. The first one is actually ambition. Your first block there is ambition. What really helps us drive forward? First one is ambition. Second one, oh, no, never mind. Sorry. It is ambition, but not that slide. I'll just stop it there. Okay, second one is skills, and then, not surprising, 3, 4, and 5 are all attitude. People who are successful tend to want to be successful and tend to have the skills necessary to be successful. After that, it's mostly our attitude. Because all things being equal, or even close to equal, you'll take the person with the better attitude over the person with the worse attitude. Nobody wants the person on their team who's like a total downer, right? And who causes problems and drama within the team, right? So as long as somebody with a great attitude is even close on ambition and skills, you'll take that person. So as we look at ourselves and say, how do I grow? How do I develop as a leader? Attitude is going to be a big component. Okay, so there's a self-assessment there for you. We're going to quickly move through that one, actually. Okay, because we want to talk about 3 keys to attitude and how we work on this one. First one is choice, and this is a fun challenge because it's a fun challenge because it's true. Attitude is a choice. One of my favorite quotes is from a guy, his name is Sean Aker. Let's see, I'm on page 19, bottom page 19. His name is Sean Aker. He wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. He's a professor at Harvard. He teaches a positive psychology class at Harvard. And he wrote a book, Happiness Advantage. Really good. If you're into kind of like, human psychology and behavior, it's a really great book. It's called The Happiness Advantage. And one of my favorite quotes from that book is he said, happiness is a work ethic, not an attitude. And I have tried to teach my kids that happiness is a work ethic. Because, for the most part, happiness is a choice, and it takes work to choose that, to make that choice. I also tell my children, no situation is so bad that complaining about it won't make it worse. Right? And there are dozens and dozens of books around how we make that choice, what impacts that choice. I'd recommend Happiness Advantage if you kind of like this, but it's good, right? And so we just, as leaders, this is where that intentional leadership comes in. As leaders, that's what we have to decide to do within our own organizations, because leaders are responsible for the atmosphere of the organization. If the organization that you lead is going to be one of positive, productive, even bordering on happiness at work, it's going to start with you. And making that intentional choice that I'm going to choose to respond to things in a better way is important. Okay, next one, this is where I was like, that can't be the right slide. Next one is, our attitude determines our approach to life. And recent developments illustrate this. Anybody love the snow? Laura, and tell us why. Oh. Yeah, most people who like snow are skiers, snowboarders, right? Yeah. Like to play in it. I hate the snow because the only thing I ever do is drive. I don't do anything fun anymore. And dry, wet clothes. Like 4 times a day I'm taking clothes and throwing them in the dryer. Okay, but our attitude towards something impacts our approach to it. Some people see snow and it's like the greatest thing ever. It's fascinating to watch this on Facebook. I've been interested as I watch the post about snow days. You can see different people's approach to life based on how they talk about snow. Like, I hate snow days because I'm like, great, 6 of my 7 kids are in school. So on a snow day, I'm like, that just means that 6 of my 7 kids are not in school. I hate it. And other people, they're like, yay, snow day, I love it, all my kids home. I'm like, yeah, you have 2 kids, right? But you can absolutely see, just on how people respond to something like snow, how our attitude determines our approach to life. And this is true of everything. If we like, right? If we make the choice of having kind of a positive attitude towards things, everything is approached differently. For me personally, it's public speaking. When somebody asks me to speak in public, that like makes my day. That's like the best thing that happens to me that week. I look forward to like this class. I've been looking forward to this class for months. I'm probably the only one, but that's okay. I don't care, right? Unless don't you guys do an eval of the class? Yeah, unless the session evaluations are so terrible that Scott and Cody don't ask me to come back, I've had a great time. But even if they never asked me to come back, I still had a great time. So, whatever. I don't care, Brenda. That's just the way it is, right? But for some people, right, public speaking, you'd rather die than have to speak in front of people. But some of that is determined by our attitude. Some of it, again, is previous to ambition and skills. It happens to be something that some people disagree, but I like doing it, and I'm fairly decent at it, so that impacts my attitude. Okay, so in our work environments, how have we seen this? How have we seen the choice of people that you work with impacting their approach to your work situations? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Have you found the ability to train that? In my work with customer service, I could never train empathy. Right. You have to hire for it. You've either got it or you don't, right? Yeah. In our call center, I worked with them and tried to come up with some kind of hiring process that trained. We gave them they had to take fake calls, and we kind of gauged how they responded when people presented problems. And if they didn't respond with empathy, I recommended not hiring them because I said, look, if they don't have empathy, I can't train them on how to get it. If somebody says this thing broke, and you can't at least say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, we shouldn't hire you. Or we should put you in finance, something, because they don't care. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. Okay, good. Any other examples of choice and how it impacts our approach to what we're doing? The choice of our attitude? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure. And can you make that choice to say, although I disagreed with this, I'm going to get behind it and support it because this is the way the organization is going, so I'm going to. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Which is also a choice, right? I mean, I can make the choice to say, you know what, this isn't the way I wanted to go, so I'm just going to have a bad attitude about this entire project, which is going to impact our approach to that project. Very good. Any other thoughts on this? Anything you've seen within your organization on making that choice and the impact it has on our approach to life? There's one last one, which is our attitude can turn problems into, and there's two things, you can either put opportunities or blessings. The same situation can happen to two people, and the impact and outcome of that can be very, very different based on how we choose to view it. Which is interesting, because I tell my wife that. I talked with my wife about this, and it's fascinating, because, like, I study this stuff all the time, and I teach it all the time, because I'm working with salespeople, and for salespeople, attitude is so powerful and important, and customer service people, attitude and approach is so important and powerful. And I talk with my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, I don't know if I believe that. And I'm like, well, read the book. No, I don't think so. Anybody work with anybody who doesn't seem to buy into this idea of attitude and being a choice and impacting the way that we approach things? Anybody have anybody on your team that's that way, or had anyone you work with or interact with? Yeah. 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 Which, heaven forbid, at your work you have things to do. I mean, that would be tough. Right. Yeah. 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 Sure. Sure. But that's the way we choose to view a long meeting impacting our approach to life, right? And whether we see a lot to do at work as a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. Okay, so as leaders then, what can we do to impact this? What's within our sphere of control as we look at, okay, as a leader, what can I do within my organization? Chris, you just talked about it a little bit, right? Is you yourself having a positive approach to things? We talk about, you talk about this a lot, that complaints always go up. One of the most dangerous things that a leader can do is start sowing seeds of discord and discontent in people within their organization. If you have an issue or a problem, it should always go up, or at least to HR, right? Is this good? Yeah, go to HR with it, right? Because as soon as you start sowing that seed, that's the crop you're going to get. And it's very hard for a leader to pull that back. As soon as a leader starts complaining and criticizing and being negative, it's very hard for that leader to pull it back. Paul? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, so here's your small assignment for this one. I'm just going to give you guys about 30 seconds. Because we said in number one, our attitude is a choice. Now, because being a solid leader and adding to our group dynamic is always intentional, it's great to say, oh yeah, attitude's a choice. It's even better to identify what is the attitude choice I'm going to make. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. You've got space down your paper. I just want you to write that down for yourself. What is the attitude that you personally are going to choose to try to be the beginning of that attitude infusing into your organization? Let's get down a few words that can clearly articulate what the choice is you're going to make. And if you're kind of struggling with that, you may just start off. I will choose to. And then just start writing down the things that you want. Okay, I'm handing all of you a little sticky note so that you can take a couple of the words that you wrote. If you want a bigger sticky note, there's bigger ones up there. You're welcome to get one, or you can have multiple sticky notes. But I want you to write down a couple of those ideas, write it on the sticky note so that you can stick it to your phone or to the front of your little workbook here, something a little more mobile so that when you get back to back to work, you can take it, stick it somewhere where you might actually see it one day in the future. What is the attitude? Okay, and then on page, I think it's 20, is that questions? Okay, yep, page 20 starts a few questions for you here on attitude that you can answer in your own time. And let's wrap up with our L, R-E-A-L. L is leadership. And we're going to talk about two laws, which is fun because it's two of the three laws that I talked a little bit about at our luncheon. So this will be a review. You may remember it and suddenly go, oh yeah, I remember he said that. Although right now, none of you remember anything I said. Which is another interesting leadership idea. If you've already said it, that doesn't mean you should never say it again. One of my favorite quotes from Maxwell is that leaders should often become like verbally exhausted from saying the mission and the vision. That's not an exact quote, clearly, but that's the concept, right? And once you feel as though you're like nearly sick of hearing yourself say the same thing over and over and over again, it's probably starting to seep into the organization, right? Because you've said it so many times, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't stand to hear myself say it again. And then your team's like, oh, huh. I think she's saying something here, right? Like maybe Matt is trying to give us some consistency, right? We often think that people pick up on what we are saying, and that's totally untrue. Like, no offense, because in a week I will forget most of what I've said today too, but in a week, most all of us will have forgotten like 90% of what we talked about in our class today. And that's okay. That's why growing is a process, because it's incremental growth. And then you hear something again, and it sticks with you the second, third, fourth time you hear it. That's why we're constantly working on growth. But we'll talk about it. Anyway. Okay, first law of the lid. Your organization will not go any further than your leadership ability will take it. Law of the lid. If you're a level 4 leader, your organization will not run at level 7 effectiveness. Because people who are 7s and 8s don't follow people who are 4s. If you're a 4, you're leading people who are 1s, 2s, and 3s. Because they've already, the 7s and 8s are leading different organizations. So if you want to improve your organization, the best way to improve your organization, improve your own leadership skills. That's why this class is crucial. Being in this class will help you and help the efficiency of your organizations. It's why, it's why companies decide to invest in leadership development, is because organizations then improve as the leadership ability of the leaders improve. Which should spawn a question in our mind, which is, okay, if I'm going to improve my leadership ability, how do I do it? Which is the second law, which is the law of process, which is leaders develop daily, not in a day. If you think about, and that little picture's driving me crazy. I know, I'll be honest. I hate to do this. I didn't even come up with that. I know. I sent the PowerPoint with just words to somebody, and they did that. Which is a pure educational tool. That's very bad, because now nothing I say matters, because you're like, whoa. What in the heck is going on there? Can you follow a ball through the whole thing, or do they just They just disappear at some point? Because I'm following one at this point. Oh, my ball just dropped out the bottom of the thing over here. That's a bummer. Does it? Does it? Ah, fascinating. Okay. I have to tell Barb, kill the cool process thing. Once we're done here, once we're done in 10 minutes, I'll go back to that slide and you can sit and watch it for as long as you want. As long as you want. Okay, law of the process. Law of the process is that we overestimate the event and underestimate the process. Life is incremental. All growth is slow. If you want to become a better leader, commit to a year of development. We overestimate the event and we underestimate the process. A year's commitment to growth in any area is typically what's needed to see growth in that area. Nobody suddenly explodes into great success. One of the great examples of this is the story of the Beatles, because the Beatles exploded on the scene in America in the 60s, right? And they were like an overnight sensation, going from nobody even knew who they were to suddenly they were the biggest thing in the world. But when you study the Beatles, what you come to find out is that they had spent years, over 1,200 live performances at bars in Germany to people who weren't even listening to them, perfecting their craft. They didn't explode onto the scene. They didn't suddenly rocket to greatness. They spent years playing at bars in Germany, over 1,200 live performances before they ever hit the levels of fame that we see, which is like this sudden blast of growth. Another great example is Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates suddenly comes out of nowhere and develops Microsoft. Well, it turns out Bill Gates had spent years and years and years in early computer development because he just happened to live in a place where one of his classmates had a dad who worked for a computer company and could get them free development time. And so they would sneak in on nights and weekends into this school computer that they had, the only one in the area, right? And they spent hours and hours and hours and hours just tinkering around developing. And then all of a sudden, boom, he explodes with Microsoft. But all growth is incremental. So if you say, I want my organization to be better, it's going to take a disciplined, consistent approach. That's why I said, let's put a mental flag in what Matt said about, it was Bill, right, the CEO? The amount of time and the consistency with which he developed that kind of aura and atmosphere around himself of people focus, right? Clearly, I hate to do this, but clearly following the law of process. Right? He didn't go to one store opening and suddenly everyone was like, wow, he's the most incredible people person ever. It took time and consistent, processed growth to get there. Okay, so the secret of our success is discovered in our daily agenda. It's what we're doing on a daily basis that really determines what, if any, growth we'll experience. So 2 key things for you to understand about your own leadership. One is that you are the lid on your organization's effectiveness. And 2, if you want to get better at it, it's investing in the process. And what is your personal leadership growth plan for 2017? Okay. So as we wrap up, then we look at a few of the key things that leaders do and try to focus on. And the first one is challenging the process. I think this has a laser pointer. Oh, right there. Challenge the process. Leaders are often the first ones to look at a process and say, why is it like this? How could we make it better? Is this the best way to be doing things? Should we be doing things different? Leaders often look at and challenge the current process. And then, as Paul said, it's not just about challenging the process. The next pieces are inspire a vision, shared vision, inspire a shared vision, enable others to act, so it's great to challenge the process, but only if you can inspire a shared vision of what we're going to do about growing and developing that process. If all you're going to do is challenge the process and then break everything up and leave it broken, then you're not necessarily a leader. You're just kind of Donald Trump, I guess. That's a joke, Matt. That's a joke. Just kidding. Right? If you're just going to challenge the process and just leave everything broken, that's not leadership. Leadership is then inspiring a shared vision and enabling people to act towards that vision. How do we get people driving in the right direction? Model the way themselves. Leaders are always doing the things that they want other people to do. And then the last one is encourage the heart. Because as leaders, we understand people won't work hard for something that they don't really care about. So getting people engaged at a care level, at a heart level, at I'm passionate about this level, which without knowing, right, that may be why Bill did some of those things, right, was to connect with the heart of the people, because that's what great leaders do. Once we have the heart of somebody, it's much easier to lead them. Okay. So, challenge, inspire, enable, model, and encourage. Okay. So, on your next page, there's a leadership inventory for you there. A few scale of 1 to 5 questions for you to ask yourself. Okay. So again, 4 key areas if we want to really improve in our leadership. It's relationship, it's equipping others, it's starting with our own attitude and infusing that into our organization, and it's the key concepts of leadership, of understanding that you are the key linchpin in growing the effectiveness of your organization and focusing in on the process of growth. How am I going to grow as a leader? What books am I going to read? What am I going to listen to or watch? What classes or seminars might I attend, right? Clearly you guys have invested in this. Outside of this, are there other things? Because I think Scott said this is class 8 of 12, which means that this class will be ending in the next couple of months, I think, right? And so then what are you going to do from there for the rest of the year to continue to grow as a leader? Because growing as a leader is not one of those like check mark things. Right? You're going to get a fantastic diploma at the end of this, I believe. I think so, right? I bet. Right? You're going to get a cool piece of paper to put on your desk at work that says, like, gosh, I've developed as a leader. And all that means is that that's how far you've gotten to that point, which is great. I love that you've invested that far. But growth is a life plan, not a one-year plan. Goals are very time-based. Growth is not. And the more we become growth-oriented over goal-oriented, the more we realize that every goal that we accomplish is part of our overall growth plan, which continues until we die. And then And then you get to contribute to the growth of other things like grass and flowers. Right? Isn't that what happens? I think so. Unless you're, which is like, I always worry about those coffins. Those coffins can't be good for the ground. Right? But isn't that a bad thing to, I don't know. Seems like that's contrary to the whole circle of life thing. You know what I mean, Matt? Are you with me on that? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. Good. So, what I'm hoping that, one of the things that is always a challenge about these classes is we talk for 3 hours, and what I hope is that you try to implement 1 or 2, maybe 3 of the things that we've talked about. There's a lot of things that you've heard today. There's maybe a lot of ideas that popped into your head. And what I often tell people is try to do fewer of them. If you go out of here and try to do a dozen things, I can almost guarantee you won't be successful at it. Very few people are successful focusing on 12 things. So what I hope is, and I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes of class to actually do this, is to just pick 1 or 2. We've talked about a lot of things. I've given you a bunch of laws, a bunch of different things, and that's so that you have a wide menu of items to choose from. But I want you to pick and write down on the front of your booklet 1 or 2 of them. What's the 1 or 2 things you're going to try to work on over the next couple of weeks? Last 2 minutes of class, that's your goal. All right, last leadership lesson that I will leave you with today is that one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader is create accountability. So we have a good number. So Matt and Paul, bloop, bloop, Laura and Brenda, bloop, Chris, Don, Morgan, Kelsey, and then 3 here. Just quickly turn to the person next to you and just tell them what you wrote on the front of your book. What's the 1 or 2 things you're going to implement as a result of this class? Tell them so that they can hold you accountable for it. Then Barb's going to ask you the same question. Yes, that was perfect. Loved it. Then notes and stuff, yes.